Welcome to the League of Women Voters Forum on Education. Can every child succeed? I'd like to make a few announcements, and then I will turn it over to Bev Schwartzberg, who will make some comments about the library. I'm going to give you a few upcoming dates for the League. On June 7, there will be a forum here in the Faulkner on community choice energy presented by CEC, and we are supporting that event. On June 10th, we will have our annual meeting at Valley Verde from 9:30 to 2:30. On June 24th, we will have our joint board meeting from 9:30 to 3 at Joni Jones' house. And July 13th, we will have our calendar planning meeting at Bonnie's home, Bonnie Lassen. You have cards on your chairs. If you have questions, please fill out the card and we will collect them. There will be no break today in this meeting. Again, welcome and thank you for coming, and I will turn this over to Bev Schwartzberg.
So good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming to the library for this forum, and I just want to recognize our library director, Jessica Cadiente, who many of you have met in the back of the room. We're also delighted to have a chance to give a little introduction to the program today, focused on Can Every Child Succeed? So as soon as we get some slides up, Cassidy, we're getting there. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and why I'm here and some of the special things the library does to help every child succeed. So many of you know from a presentation that we've done previously to the League of Women Voters that the library offers a lot of programs, including many programs for early literacy, for children and parents, to learn those building blocks of literacy, working with words and sounds and playing and song and music. And we also offer after-school homework tutoring, homework help. But we here in the library, as you know, our mission here to educate, captivate, and connect. And I think today is a great example of how the library is educating and captivating and connecting with new audiences. My particular role in the library is to coordinate adult literacy services at the library. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but when I saw today's program, Can Every Child Succeed?, I wanted to give you an answer, which is I think yes, every child can succeed. So here in the adult literacy program, we're in the business of helping adults succeed, but we actually really want y'all to put us out of business, not the library, right? We want you to put adult literacy services out of business because we'd like to see a world where children are succeeding and don't necessarily need the kind of basic services that we provide in adult literacy. So I'm very vested in that answer. We don't want you to put the library out of business. We want you to make the library a busier place than ever, because if every child can succeed, every child, we think, will use the library as a place to be educated, to be captivated, and to connect with their community. So libraries, adult literacy services, we've been around for 30 years. We're part of a statewide service called California Library Literacy Services, and we have worked with thousands of community volunteers who are tutors in our program and thousands of community learners who have learned to improve their reading and writing skills in the program. I'm so happy that in the audience we have a number of active tutors and past tutors who have been such wonderful helps in the program, working with an individual adult to help that person build their basic skills. So the library literacy program helps with people both who are learning English and who are English speakers who want help with basic reading and writing, but also in preparing for citizenship, GED, getting ready for college, all of those things that would mean a child would be succeeding as well. I'm also here today because I want to talk about a special project, a special initiative we're working on in the library, along with Santa Barbara City College. Under the Adult Education Block Grant Program, we have a special project called 1 in 5, the Dyslexia Project. And here's one slide from it. We know that one of the needs of adult learners, but also of other people in the community, children and teens, is to get appropriate remediation for dyslexia. Dyslexia is a very common example of neurodiversity. It's not a disease, it's not a disorder. it's a different way that the brain works. We know that proper education can really help retrain the mind, change the brain of an individual with dyslexia. And our program, the 1 in 5 program, is dedicated to helping individuals be able to make that change. To that end, I wanted to mention a program that's coming up. We are offering 3 times this year an 18-hour training for any community member. It could be a parent of a child with dyslexia. It could be a tutor working with a child or an adult with dyslexia. It could be a teacher or a teacher's aide. It could be a community member with an interest or with a family member who struggles with reading. So we're bringing Dyslexia Training Institute of San Diego in to carry out an 18-hour training. And the first one actually starts this weekend. It's May 20th, 21st, and then we finish it up on June 4th. It will be actually held at Santa Barbara City College. And location will be announced if you pre-register. It is by pre-registration only, and it is from 9 a.m. in the morning to 4 p.m. in the afternoon, so a full 18-hour training. If you had to pay for this training, you'd have to pay a lot of money. It is very high quality, and it is being carried out by really, I think, the best consultant in the state and perhaps the best consultant in the country. And this is a project that's sponsored by a number of community groups. One of our key partners is a group called Dyslexia Santa Barbara, and Sherry Ray from Dyslexia Santa Barbara is here, and her business card is in the back of the room if you are at all interested in talking with her. She's here, and I'm sure she will answer questions, but if you want her contact information. And I've also put information in the back of the room just about how to contact the Adult Literacy Program, how to get more information about the Help a Struggling Reader training, as well as just my business card and the general business card for the Adult Literacy Program. So I know I've already had some questions. I know that when we spoke in front of the League of Women Voters a few months ago, and I introduced the Dyslexia Project, there were people who came up to me from the audience and said, my sister is dyslexic. If they had known when she was a child and she had gotten inappropriate instruction, her whole life would have been different. It really changed her life. Feeling that she couldn't read, feeling that she couldn't succeed. And so our program, and I know that you as a group are really interested and really vested in the question, can every child succeed? It takes a lot of hard work. You know that from your own families, helping every child succeed. But when we look at a community or a state or a country, it's an even more concerted effort. So for our part, we just wanted you to know about this project, the Dyslexia Project, which is designed to help some children and adults who have not succeeded have the opportunity to succeed. So thank you for the opportunity to give this sort of forward to the talk. I also want to ask, on behalf of the library, a very important question, which is, how did you hear about this program? So Cassie's going to count for me. And the first question is, I know almost everybody will answer yes to this. How many of you heard about this program through League communications, through the League of Women Voters? I'm going to ask you, put your hands down, if you also saw anything about this program in the Santa Barbara Independent. Anybody who saw it in our lobby display in the library? Thank you. If anybody saw it in the library's e-newsletter that comes out every Sunday. Great. Anybody saw it on the library website? Anybody hear about it through word of mouth? And anybody who heard about it through Facebook or other social media? And is there anything I left out? Is there anybody who heard about it in another way? Yes, tell us.
Santa Barbara News Press.
Santa Barbara News Press. Okay, thank you. Yes, in the back. Santa Barbara News Press. Excellent. Okay. Thank you so much for giving us that count. I wanted to give just a couple minutes if anyone had questions about the library's programs, the Library Literacy Program, or the Dyslexia Project. It's a great time to ask, although I'll be here for the whole program. Yes?
You said it happens 3 times a year?
Yes, it will only be happening this year because it's grant funding through the Adult Education Block Grant Program, and it will happen over the next year, essentially. So we don't have the second and third dates for the training. We're having our first round. We have probably about 50 people coming to this training, to this 18-hour training. We will offer it virtually. It'll be offered online for one of the training sessions, and then we'll offer another live training session. What we want to do is pull the people who are not able to come to this training and make sure we offer it at times and dates when they are available to come. Because I talk to a lot of parents who just, because of the time of year, were not able to come. this time around. But if you're interested in getting more information, please pick up my card and contact me or see me, and I will make sure that you get on the mailing list for that. I would love to get you the information. Any other questions that I can entertain? Well, this is great, because I want to turn it over to our wonderful speakers here and to the people who are going to introduce the program. Just show you, just like you're showing us today, that forming communities and collaboration is really at the core of what libraries do. And so it's our privilege today to host the League's Forum, as we have for the last few months, and to talk about a really important question of interest to so many in our community. So thanks so much. And Irene, I'm turning it over to you, Irene Stone from the League. Thanks.
Thank you, Bev. Yes, it's wonderful to be able to be here in the library, to have our forums here, and we appreciate hearing all of the wonderful activities the library is doing, because certainly Can Every Child Succeed? This is a community effort as well as a school effort. You may have seen just recently that the state did come out with some new testing statistics, which show that there are improvements in reading and math statistics across the state. But the one point that they do point out is that the gap does occur and does continue in achievement among some of the subgroups. So today what we're looking at, what we want to address is what are some of the efforts that we have to assure that every child can succeed. The Santa Barbara Unified School District has been developing a number of different programs, and so we want to make this a good news presentation where we can share with you and highlight for you some of the programs that have been developed in the district that are being effective in the district. And for that purpose, we're going to hear from a number of representatives as well as students. I'll give you a little heads up first. I think we should couch this, though, in the motto of the Santa Barbara School District, which is that every child, every chance, every day. That does form, I think, the basis for all of the kinds of programs and considerations that the district undertakes. We're going to begin really with an overview of the school district and some of the goals and programs that they have. And for that, we're very pleased to welcome Kate Parker, who is president of the Santa Barbara School Board. Kate has been on the board since 2006 and has had 3 children graduate through the school district. So she is very committed and certainly is. We appreciate her coming today and sharing with us her knowledge and experiences with the school district. Kate.
All right. We'll see if we can get this working for us here. Mm-hmm. No. Yours looks a little bit different from mine. Yes, I can just press play, well, and let's see if it, but when I do that, it doesn't show my presenter notes. But I think that I can go ahead and do it that way, because I think I remember most of this from off the top of my head. So thank you so much for that kind introduction. And I am thrilled to be here today, and on behalf of my fellow board members and also on behalf of our superintendent, Carrie Matsuoka, I'm really glad to be here to share a little bit about the background of the Santa Barbara Unified School District and where we are today as we then go into greater detail with some of our presenters that I have following me. And I am serving in my 11th year on the board. By day, I am the library director at Kate School, a small boarding school out in Carpinteria, and so it's particularly fun for me to be here at the main central library. So let's talk about, first of all, a little bit about the background of where we started. Many of you know that we celebrated our 150th year recently, and we started in 1866. It wasn't that there were no schools here before then, there were, but the Santa Barbara City Schools started in 1866. And this is a report actually that you're looking at from the Superintendent of Schools and the Secretary of the Board of Education to the Board of Education from 1902. So a little bit over 100 years ago. What were they thinking about then? Well, actually they were thinking a lot about what we think about now. They were talking about teaching and learning. They were talking about instruction and curriculum. They were talking about classroom observation and professional development and who they were serving. There were some side notes, a lot about sweeping the floors and what cleaners they were using. So there were some differences than you'd see in a report from today, but a lot of it was very similar to what we see even over 100 years later and what we're talking about. So this is our district's first purpose-built school. This was the original Lincoln School. And this is taking a look at it at about 1900 or so. And when that report was written in 1902, we at that point had 4 elementary schools. They were K-8 schools. Kindergarten was considered a separate function, but they were located on the elementary school campuses. And Lincoln School, this version of Lincoln School only lasted till the 1920s. Its location was where the farmers market, the downtown farmers market, is currently held now, because we've had a lot of swaps between the city and the school district over the years of who goes where. We've done a lot of property swaps. I wanted to pull this up. So at that time, we had the 4 K-8 schools. We had Santa Barbara High School already existed, and it originally started as just a few rooms up in the upper floors of that Lincoln School. By 1902, they were already renting some rooms elsewhere, and they were in the process of building the first version of Santa Barbara High School, which is not the one that exists today. That one was built in 1924. But they had also what was called a manual training school, or a Sloyd school, and it was started by a woman named Anna S.C. Blake, who wanted to work with the district and make sure that there were manual crafts that were available originally for elementary students, but that spread up over the years. And when you look at that, I know that a lot of you that have been to events for the League of Women Voters at the Lowry Davis Center will recognize it. It's currently owned by the city, again through one of our property swaps. But that was, what you're looking at is essentially the kernel, the foundation of Santa Barbara City College and UC Santa Barbara. Those both built out of this original institution here, the Anna S.C. Blake Normal School. And so I appreciate that. Eventually, over time, that became the district office. That was the original district office, and we swapped properties at one point, and that's how come we're on Santa Barbara Street now. But it's important to note that at this time, we had over 1,000 students that were in K-8 schools. We had 28 high school graduates in 1901. So you can see there's a huge drop-off in who was going to high school, right? People were going really in the younger years, but not going on to high school so much. So this was the student demographics. Number of white children at that time, between 5 and 17 years of age, 1,774. They were not all in school. Number of Negro children, 1, number of Indian children, 5, and I know you can imagine that a lot of people weren't counted. I also want you to note that there was no designation of Latino or Hispanic. Latino and Hispanic were considered part of the white children's group. Nevertheless, there were not as many of those students in our schools, not many at all, and it was really a language issue. Spanish was then, and of course still is, a very dominant second language and in this region, and those students simply were not in our schools at that time. We were not providing anything like we do today. But how do we measure success? One of the interesting things is that it was actually really through college and career readiness in 1901. So in this report from 1902, they had done a look back at all the alumni. The first graduating class from Santa Barbara High was from 1878. And they literally went through and put down what they are doing now. Rancher, student at UC Berkeley, trained nurse, working for the Santa Fe Railroad. They had listed that. They were able at the time to put that for each one of them. And so it's pretty fascinating to look back, but it's also important to note that college and career ready was important over 100 years ago. So who are we serving today? Things have changed. This is the San Marcos graduating class from a couple of years ago. So it gets complicated, though. That simple little book, now when we try to look for data, and I don't even want you to bother trying to focus on that, because it is, there's so much data points that are taken. We take a look in great detail at various sub-statistics of sub-statistics. There's a lot of information, and I really encourage you, if you want to do a deep dive in what's going on with our district, one of the great places to start is at ed-data.org, and if you just Google ed data and California, you're going to come up with this website. And this is where we go and take a look, okay, so what students are we serving right now, and how are we serving them? So what I'll tell you is that we currently have 10 elementary schools and 3 elementary charter schools. Those serve about 5,000 students in the region. And we are, of course, we're a unified district now. We weren't always, but we are a kind of a funky district in that we have elementary boundaries that are much smaller, that encompass most of the city of Santa Barbara, and then a junior high and high school district that is much, much broader, that runs from Montecito all the way up to El Capitan. So our elementary school population is smaller, 5,000 students. As they go into 7th grade, and all of our partner elementary districts, that's Hope, Cold Spring, Montecito Union, and Goleta Union, as they come into the junior highs, they join us into Santa Barbara Unified, into our 4 junior high schools, which serve about 3,000 students. And then we have 3 comprehensive high schools, and I could tell you there are 2 alternative high schools, but there's kind of 3 and a half. It becomes complicated when we talk about alternative high school programs, but we have a number of them. And those serve, altogether, they serve about 7,000 students. Our demographics now are, when we talk across K or even preschool to senior year, we're about 60% Latino, 32% white students, 8% then of other race and ethnicities. 42% of our students are low income, 25% are English learner, and about 12% are in our special education program. And I think it's important to note that within the city of Santa Barbara, those demographics are different, so they're different from for our elementary schools, much higher for low income and much higher for English learner when we're just talking about our elementary and programs. And how do we measure success now? That has also become complicated. There have been some major changes over the past few years. We had California state standards. We had California, what was called STAR testing before. We had ranking that was called the Academic Performance Index, the API. And we used to give scores to schools, essentially. This school was scoring it at 750. This one was at 825. With the change over to the Common Core a number of years ago, over time, those have all gone away. And so now we are looking at, this is the California School Dashboard. So you can see over here, this is really complicated. We're looking, the best thing you can have are green and blue balls. Blue balls are the best there. You see some that are yellow, orange. That's a district level report that we're looking at over there. And there's a school level report, and that's Adams Elementary School there. So there's data that you can look at, but it's hard. So what we're really looking at, what we really encourage you to do is go to the California School Dashboard and look really in depth at these things for each school. So when we look at a school, or when we look at where students are ending up, we're thinking, though, about every child, every chance, and every day. We're looking at graduation rates. We're looking at suspension rates. We are looking at attendance. Those are all important factors now. There's no number anymore. We're essentially complicating things a lot more, but life is complicated, and our schools are complicated. And so I know that my time is almost up, and we're ready for questions. I did want to briefly mention that we have brought in some programs that support individual students, because we are thinking about each unique student, and you're going to hear about them. They're coming up. But some others that won't be talked about today, we have restorative approaches to try to address our suspension and expulsion rates and school climate. We've brought in equitable access consultants to try to identify students who are not taking our highest level courses but could be taking our highest level courses, because we want to make sure that across all demographics students are in those classes. And then finally, another one that I want to mention because I'm here in the library is we are bringing in a dyslexia teacher on special assignment for next year, and that is really going to kickstart us finally building a plan to serve those 1 in 5 students with dyslexia. And I think that leaves me open for questions right now. Am I right? And so I know that's a lot of information in a very brief amount of time, and there will be more opportunities for questions later. But are there any questions about the district overview at this time? All right, then I'll turn it back to Ms. Stone.
Thank you so much, Kate. That's historically, it is interesting to see how the district has changed over the years and all the development that has happened. And also, I think the amount of data that is now available to look at. I was looking at the school dashboard web page yesterday and considering how difficult it is to really, deal with all of that. But our purpose now is to go ahead and to start looking at some of these wonderful programs that the district has been developing. Let me just get my notes here for a minute. And the first program that we would like to highlight is the Academy for Success that was formed 8 years ago at Dos Pueblos High School to provide support to the most at-risk students on the campus. Since its inception, the Academy has graduated 100% of their students, which is quite extraordinary. Because of its success, the Academy has now been expanded to all of the other high schools in the school district as well. We are pleased to have Kelly Choi here, Director for the Academy for Success, and really the driving force behind its creation. And she will tell us more about the program. Kelly has been teaching for 20 years, 18 years of those at Dos Pueblos High School. She has taken on multiple leadership roles in the district and was named 2014 Santa Barbara County Teacher of the Year. Please welcome Kelly Choi.
Thank you. Hi. So as Irene just said, we are working with the Academy for Success. It's a program that we started 8 years ago, and I was one of the original founders of that. I wanted to take a little time today to just explain what our program does, and then I have a student here with me today that is going to share her story about her experience in the Academy, because that's way more interesting than anything I'm going to tell you. So I'm at Dos Pueblos. Dos Pueblos, just like the other 2 high schools, are exceptional schools. We're very lucky to be in Santa Barbara. So the needs of most students are met in the regular programs at our 3 high schools, because all of the teachers and the work at the administrators and staff out there is outstanding. So every once in a while you have students who have some sort of problem come up. They may have some sort of trauma in their life, or they may have some sort of learning disability that's getting in their way. So a regular school system becomes difficult for them to work within. So a lot of times our Academy students come to us looking like the kind of kid who maybe comes to school every day, goes to all their classes, and yet they're failing every class. Or maybe they're the Academy student there's a student who comes to school every day and then is getting into trouble, right? They're coming to class and they're just kind of stirring the pot a little. And then you've got the students who are not even coming to school. They've given up, they're finding something else to do, probably not a great choice, and they're not coming to school anymore. So those are the students that the Academy for Success has decided to outreach for. And I think I can, bear with me here, let's see. This is our demographic. It matches similar to actually what Kate just shared, except that you'll notice that we are serving 85% of our students are at the low income to moderate income level. Our profile is this. We're looking for the kids who have D's and F's in their classes. We're looking for kids who are having trouble getting along with the adults on campus and the authority figures on campus. We're looking for the kids who are not coming to school. We're also looking for the kids who don't have other services yet to help them. There are plenty of amazing programs in our district that help students, and so we're just looking for the kids who have slipped through all of those. And then we get that information from our administrators and counselors, and then the last thing we do is we ask the kids, would you like to be part of it? Tomorrow, we're going to be asking our current 9th graders if they would like to join the next academy class at Dos Pueblos. There will be approximately 60 students that we will invite who fit this profile, and we will take 35 of them. All of them will say yes tomorrow. I'm certain of it. In the past years, every time we ask, they all will say, yes, we would like that help. So here's what we offer them. Their sophomore year, we say, why don't you come with us, and we're going to put you in a school within a school environment. We're going to give you the same set of teachers for the next 3 years. So you're not going to have to get used to different personalities all the time. You're going to get used to one personality for your math teacher or for your English teacher. And so then you'll have those same 4 teachers until you graduate. We also then will help you get reintegrated into the school and the community. So we'll help you get involved in that sport that you really would like to play, or maybe you'd like to cheer, or maybe you'd like to be in a club. Maybe you'd like to do some internships in the community or volunteering. And so we help them set all that up. Then their senior year, we help them think about where they're going next. Is it college? Is it a career? Where do they want to go? What do they want to do? And this is how we do that. So their daily routine is that they have all 4 of their core classes together. So the students stay together all day, but then they move from class to class to their different teachers, so that we really can create kind of a family-like environment where the kids not only are used to their teachers, but they're used to their peers. And then the afternoon, after lunch, they take a guided studies class with us, and that class is designed to help them get all of their homework done. They have student mentors in there who are good at school or engaged in school, and they like to come in and they'll help them with their work if they need it, or just talk with them about the activities they're involved in and talk to our students about getting involved in them. A lot of times that's how we reintegrate our students back into the athletics programs and the clubs. Our mentors will come in and say, lacrosse tryouts are next week, you should come and try out. And because our kids know that mentor, they'll go out and they'll try out. It's great. So this is what happens in our program when we've given this kind of support. You can see that the discipline issues reduced to practically nothing by their senior year. In fact, you can see that just from their 9th grade year without academy to their 10th grade year is an extraordinary difference. So needless to say, the office is really happy because they don't have as many students coming through there. The interesting part on this slide is that the yellow line includes all the data now that we have from San Marcos and Santa Barbara High. So now that we have duplicated, or we have done the model at the other 2 high schools, we're seeing the same results, which means that the model really works. The gray line is the control group. So it's the group that we studied for the first years when we did the program to see what they were, how they were progressing if they didn't have these services. So you can see the difference there. The other thing that we're very proud of is their GPAs. And what's really interesting about this slide is that the kids are not taking remedial classes. We don't dumb down the material. We don't make it easier for them or give them less. We give them more. They're all college prep classes, and some of them are honors. Like the juniors at DP right now are in an honors chemistry academy class. And so the key is they can succeed. That's to answer the question for today. And they need the support that goes along with it. So we have students who are improving their GPAs, and these are just averages. We do have students who have a 4.0 right now, and at the same time taking more rigorous classes than they would have without our program. But what makes us really unique is that we approach the student as a whole person. And so we know that they're coming to us with difficulties, with habits that they've had, with problems that they've had, and we understand that that gets in the way of school. And so we offer therapy on campus during the school day, free of charge to those students. Our therapists are licensed therapists, and they are skilled with youth, and our students will say that that's one of the most powerful things that they do. We also work with Partners in Education to do internship placement their junior and senior year. And finally, we have just started this. I'm particularly proud of this. Our current juniors have asked to go mentor the 8th graders at our junior highs that have already shown maybe signs of going off track. And so our students are going into the 8th grade schools and talking with them about how to stay on track and maybe have a more successful start at the high school level. So I'm really proud of them for that. This is our big results. 100% of our students have graduated. Most of them do enroll in City College or a vocational school, and then some of them do go straight into a career. Many of them get a career from their internship that they do with us. We're really proud of the fact that we've also been able to have some students go straight to a 4-year college, and that those students are being really successful at the 4-year college. So this is currently where we're serving students right now. So we have 30 students approximately at each of the 3 sites, and then you can see our growth plan is to just build out more and more students. So currently right now there's only one group of students going through the program at a high school. Starting tomorrow we'll be recruiting students and hopefully getting a second group coming in. So we're really looking forward to growing this program so that 10th, 11th, and 12th graders all have that support. So in the last minute or so, I would like to bring up my student Susie. Come on up. Susie is a junior at DP, and I just want her to share for a minute about her story here. So would you share with them how school was for you before the academy?
Freshman year?
Yes.
Freshman year, I was going to class, but most of the time I didn't understand anything because the teacher would just go through it and move on. And like if a student had a problem or something, I would kind of raise my hand, but I wouldn't really get any help. I grew tired freshman year, and sometimes I would even skip classes. I remember my freshman year not going to my health final, and I completely blew it. Right now I'm still making up health, but towards the end of my freshman year, I got really bad anxiety attacks. I couldn't take it anymore, and I just wanted to give up on school.
And then could you tell us a little about what was going on with you personally?
At home, something had happened that I had just spoken about in my family, and that was kind of just taking me off track of school, and I just didn't want to be anywhere like around anyone at all, not even my family members.
And then why don't you share how school is going for you now?
School is great. I love school. I love all my teachers because I know I can go to them if I have any questions about anything, and I have all A's.
Mm-hmm. And then what would you like to do next after high school?
I want to become a teacher, and I want to go straight into Westmont College.
And could you just share lastly what you're most proud of yourself for?
Just pulling myself together and actually loving school now.
Great. So I'm gonna have you stay here. So I think we have just a couple minutes for questions, right? So if you have any questions for me or Susie, please ask. Yeah.
I'm interested, you talked about bringing
Oh, hold on. I think they want to use a mic so that people can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
What happens,
I guess she has
you
something,
said
so-
that about 60 students try to become a part of the academy and you can only take 35. What happens to those students who don't get into the academy?
So that was something that was a constant worry for me. And so there's enough of success with our program that we've been able to integrate some components of our program into school-wide initiatives. So we now have at Santa Barbara High and Dos Pueblos High seminar, which is 2 times a week where students can meet with tutors one-on-one and get help. And then we've also been working on therapeutic services for students beyond just the academy. So we're slowly working on some school-wide initiatives to help support the students that aren't in the program. Yeah. Yes.
Hi, I have 3 kids who went through the Santa Barbara School District, and my hat's off. I felt they all got pretty good educations, but I did have a child who was, she was a wild one. And you talked about when you raise your hand in class and you would not get your questions answered, and you know, I think that concerns me as, you know, former parent of students. How are other kids who are not getting into these programs actually learning in that kind of a situation? This is probably more for the educators here than the student, but I do know her engagement in class was at times just terrible.
Right. You know, I mean, that's a hard question to answer because, I mean, I know teachers are so dedicated to what they're doing and that they're really working hard to meet the needs of all the students in their classes. And so I think I can only speak really to DP because I'm so familiar with it, but I know that the teachers really reach out to the students one-on-one now. I think that's a really huge culture shift at our school, is that there's another program we have at school called Check-in and Connect, and it's where teachers have just a couple students that may not even be their own students that they meet with weekly just to check in and see how they're doing on a personal level. So I know that there's been a culture shift in teachers not just being up at the front and sharing information, and that's how students learn. There's a lot more, especially with Common Core as well, there's a lot more interaction with the student and teacher now than I think there ever was before. Very different than when I was in school, I can tell you that. There was one other question here. Have you been able to track the progress, success of your graduates? Yes, I have. So thanks to social media. Also, just because Academy does become like a family, so I literally could stand here and tell you what all 60 of my graduates are doing right now, just because I know them as people. They're in my lives. I have dinner with them. So, but thanks to social media, we're able to track their progress and see how they're doing, and that's where some of our postgraduate data comes from, is me knowing where they are at school and how they're doing, completion of school. I just went to the CC graduation and saw many of them graduate, and so it's an easy way now thanks to social media. Okay, and I think that's time. Yeah, okay.
I wanted to ask about the supportive services that are more than the classroom teacher and educational part of it, because I understand that the supportive services are really one of the things that makes this a particularly effective program, and I wonder if you'd address that more directly.
Yes. What we realized as teachers was that once the students were trusting us, they were sharing a lot of stories with us that we were, we would say we're like above our pay grade, like we didn't know what to do, and yet we really care about these students. And so that's when we brought on therapists to help us with the students, but also the therapists work with our team to work with us about kind of being therapeutic educators, because we have to approach all behaviors in the classroom as there's a need. The student is behaving this way because there is a need. And instead of me reacting and being angry or, then we want to work on how we can respond to that student, see through the behavior and see what the need is. So the work with the therapist is really essential for not only our students, which Susie has participated with our therapists since she started, but also for the teachers as well. And so I think that support service is what really makes the big difference in and changing how these students feel about themselves as people, not just students. Yeah.
I want to ask if there has been a change in your family's perception of your success and you, and two, are families asked to participate in the program in any way?
Yeah, those are great questions. We invite the parents and families to be, we invite them in so that they can meet all of us. Our main philosophy is that these students are growing into adults and that they may or may not be able to change the culture of their home, and the things that go on in their home. But what they can change is how they respond to the things that happen in their home. And so we provide services for families who want them. We help connect them with any of the local services that we have here in the community. Again, I'm going to say we're so lucky to live in Santa Barbara. There's amazing, amazing nonprofits here that help all kinds of families. But ultimately, we are really into teaching the students about stepping out onto their own 2 feet and thinking about what they want their future to look like. What do they want their family to look like when they have control over their environment? And what happens then is that transformation does happen at home, because what happens is the student then is leading the parents into change, which I can also say is happening for Susie. Do you want to say something about that real quick? About how it's changing with your mom? Yeah.
Freshman year also, my relationship with my mom wasn't the best. I wouldn't really talk to her. I would just brush her off, and we would usually get into really big arguments about pretty much nothing, or sometimes even my grades. But then after that, and after the therapy I've been getting, I know how to cope with my mom. I know how to cope with her anger, and I just know things I can talk to her now. I can have a full conversation with her now. I used to not be able to, but now I can.
And can you share about what your mom is doing too? Therapy.
I have a separate therapist also outside of school, and now she's going to see her. So we're both getting our therapy, and it's both helping us, because she knows what she needs to do, and I know what I need to do.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, good job.
Well, is that a feel-good program? Well, it's just, it's wonderful to see the kinds of changes and successes that are occurring in the schools, and I think it is, being retired from the school district, having worked there for many years too, I think we all appreciate that, our purposes are to try to do the very best for the students that we have. And we hope that we are always growing and changing and coming up with new ways to be as effective and connect with students as well as we can. It's always ongoing, it's always a challenge, and as we hear about the new programs that are developed, I think we can just take a great joy in the fact that so many new and positive programs are being developed and that students are responding in such positive ways to them. That brings us to our next program that we're going to talk about, which is the PEAK program, Program for Effective Access to College. It was originally known as POSSE, and it was established in 2011 to increase high school and college graduation rates for students with high academic potential, but whose families had few economic resources. In 2016, 35 students from the pilot program at La Cumbre, which was the creation of Principal Joanne Keynes at La Cumbre still, graduated from San Marcos High School, and all were accepted into four-year colleges. Given that success, it has now been expanded to all the secondary schools. Dr. Patricia Madrigal is the director of the Community of Schools and Peak Initiatives for the school district. She is involved in the development and coordination of college readiness and access programs for first-generation college students. She also works closely with donors and community partners to provide additional social and academic support for students and their families, which is fundamental to the success of the PEAK students. Dr. Madrigal earned a bachelor's degree from UCLA and a PhD from USC in educational psychology. She has brought guests with her today, and I think you're going to have quite an enjoyable presentation. Patricia.
Well, good afternoon, and Mrs. Stone, thank you for that lovely introduction and for the invitation as well. We're so happy to be here. I do want to acknowledge my colleagues. Edith Cortez, she's one of our academic counselors who oversees the Peak Initiative. She oversees the Peak Initiative for Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High. And we also have some of our graduates from Peak, class of 2015. They were the trailblazers. They were the first class to graduate, and they are here with us today to speak about their experience when they were students, but also their experience now as college students and as Peak mentors, because they've come back to work with us. And so Peak is really about reinvesting in our community, reinvesting in our youth. So we're so happy about this program. So Peak is our strategy, Santa Barbara Unified Strategy to help close the achievement gap. We serve low-income, underrepresented first-generation students with wraparound services within a school district, very similar to the Academy for Success. And we've been able to change the trajectory of our students, and we're just so proud, not only of our organization who has invested in this program, but also our foundation partners and our community partners, because without them, we could not have done this work. As Mrs. Stone mentioned, the initiative was implemented in 2011, and it was founded and it was developed by Principal Joanne Keynes, one of our great leaders from La Cumbre Junior High. And the reason why is because Principal Keynes was graduating students from La Cumbre Junior High who were at grade level in English and math, high GPA, great, very good grades, as well as citizenship. But once they were reaching the high school, they were falling through the cracks. They were not accessing or being enrolled in advanced placement classes or honors classes, and they were not continuing on to college. And so she realized that, as Kelly Choi mentioned, as well as my colleague mentioned, there are some things in our community and in the homes of our, children who are growing up in poverty that we as a school district cannot control for. But we can control for being able to serve our students where we need to serve them, meaning, really having those academic and social emotional supports that they need to be able to succeed, and really just leveling that playing field for them, making sure that we are there as adults to support them and meet them where we need to meet them, and make sure that, we are able to change that trajectory. And so in 2011, when we started the program, we were serving a cohort of 35 students. That was the first cohort. The first cohort for San Marcos High was 35 students. Every year we increase those cohorts until we graduate our first cohort in 2015, which we're all accepted to our four-year university. As a school district, we had decided that we would pilot the model. And if we were successful and our students were accepted to four-year universities, that we would then continue to expand to all of our 7 comprehensive secondary schools. It is a 7th through 12th grade strategy. And so in the fall of 2015, we expanded to Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High. In the fall of 2016, we expanded to Goleta Valley Junior High, to La Colina Junior High, as well as Dos Pueblos High. So at that time, and currently, we're serving about 450 students in high school, but it is a 7th through 12th grade strategy, and so we are serving over 1,000 students, 7th through 12th grade. Now, that's only going to increase with the fact that we are going to continue to add those cohorts at those 2 other high schools, Dos Pueblos and Santa Barbara High School, as well as we are identifying more students who meet the criteria, because again, we're reaching down to those students now in 6th grade and making sure that we are creating a college-going culture for them. The model is based on benchmarks. We do have some outcomes and benchmarks that our students need to meet. One of them is that we do require that our students are at least at a 3.0 grade point average. And again, our students are in advanced placement and honors classes. And so, for example, this slide, what it shows here is a comparison between some of our peak students and as well as other students who are low-income, underrepresented students. And as you see here, our students in peak are, are really meeting that criteria of that 3.0 GPA. So really, what we want to hear is about the model. Let's hear about the wraparound services. Let's hear about the students and how they're doing. And that's really our experts that are with us today who are doing that work on the ground. So I'm going to turn it over to Edith Cortez, our academic counselor.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. So I'll be talking to you a little bit about the strategies within the PEAK initiative, the things that we do to ensure that the program is successful, not only for incoming seventh grade students that are entering the junior high schools, but also graduating them, making sure that they are eligible for four-year college entry. So it all starts with our recruitment. We reach out to the elementary schools and we start working with sixth grade students and their families. All the work that we do with students, we also do with the families down at the elementaries. So we have a bridge to seventh grade, which is meant for students to get better acquainted with their future junior high school teachers, to get a tour of the junior high, to build up their confidence, because confidence is so important, especially in those transitions from the elementary to the junior high school. We provide them with an academic counselor. In this case, I am the academic counselor at both Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School. We also provide them with extended tutoring services. So we have tutoring centers at Franklin Elementary, La Cumbre Junior High School, and Dos Pueblos Junior High School. And those tutoring centers are available for students in the evening hours from 5 to 7. We have other activities. Again, we're a wraparound program, so we have opportunities for extended parent learning, parent programming, workout classes, Zumba for the moms. We have weightlifting for fathers, ESL classes provided through Santa Barbara City College, and a bunch of other opportunities for students and their parents. And then we also, I have the honor to coordinate parent education programs at both the junior high and the high school. So again, the college going process is a tricky one. I say this from personal experience. I would have been a PEAK student if PEAK would have been available to me when I was in junior high and high school. So it cannot be done. We cannot send students straight to four-year college without, a team effort. And the team would be the school district, the families, and the student themselves. So we coordinate parent education programs to inform the parents of what that process is like, and then we build kind of a case management model for every single student, every single family. We take the students to UCLA. We took them to UCLA last year. We're going to USC this year, parents and students, so parents can get that exposure and see what it's really like, what the process or pathway to college is like for students as well. So in 9th through 12th grade, again, we have the dedicated academic counselor, that would be myself, at the high school. Students have the option of taking the Avid Elective class, which is another class that can help prepare them for your college entry. Our students have priority into honors and advanced placement courses, so we also cohort them. So this is one of the strategies that we work really hard in. So through PEAK, I'm able to come in and work a couple hours throughout the summer and make sure that my students are grouped into groups of 8 to 10, so that they can work as in like study groups like students do in college in their own classes, and be able to really support each other. And again, I come and do that scheduling over the summer, and I lock my students' schedules before the other counselors get priority, so that's kind of cool. And then we also have the Peak Summer Institute, so our incoming 9th grade students from, any and all 4 of the junior high schools, that we get them, have the opportunity to meet with their future teachers, explore the school, get their student schedule, and again, build up their confidence, because that's a proven strategy that works. If the student feels confident and they at least have, a couple people that they are familiar with at the high school, they're going to do better. And again, I also coordinate the parent education programs, but one of the greatest things I feel like that Peak has to offer is, again, we are a family, we work as a team, and this work could not be done without the work of the Peak mentors. So these are graduates of the home high school that went through the program themselves. And I'm going to let Jessica explain a little bit more about why this work is very personal to us and why the Peak program could not be effective if it weren't for the mentor roles.
Hi, like Edith mentioned, my name is Jessica Zamora. I was actually part of the first graduating class of Peak, class of 2015, and I'm now a mentor at the San Marcos site. I have my very own class of freshmen, and some of my jobs include just making sure they do well academically as well as personally. They're high school students, like we heard from a couple speakers. They're gonna have problems that they need to deal with, and they're gonna get affected by problems, and they're gonna go into their schoolwork. So that's also my job, to make sure everything's all right and get them the help they need. And the reason I love working here is because I think we're all very dedicated, because like Edith said, this is very personal to us. All of us up here are first generation college students, and we were part of the Peak program. All of the kids we're serving, we were in their place, and all the things that they're going through, we went through. I mean, just to tell you guys a little bit about myself, my parents, the highest education they had was a 6th grade education, so of course they could help me in basic adding and subtracting homework I got in elementary school, but it gets complicated fast, and after that I had to do it myself. And then I get to junior high, it gets more complicated. I still power through, but then I get to high school, I'm thinking, how am I going to make it through alone? There's no help offered. But then I find out I'm in this program called Peak, and I walk into a class, there's a bunch of students like me, all confused because we have no idea what this program is, and then a counselor comes in and tells us that we've been picked, that we're going to get help and we're going to make it through high school, and she's telling us that we're going to take AP classes, and I'm just looking at her like she's crazy, because how could I do that by myself? But then she tells us about a program and how it's going to offer us a place to work, a tutoring center, and they're going to have tutors, but most importantly for me, they're going to have a place to work, because a lot of us didn't have that. I lived in a small apartment where I didn't have my own desk to work. I had to do my homework wherever there was available space. Sometimes that meant the dinner table, other times that meant sitting on my bed, and other times it meant I had to stand up and use the kitchen counter to do my work just because I didn't have space. So now we have a place to go get work done. We have tutors who are college students, and they know what they're doing. They're helping us succeed in this AP classes and honors classes, and we're getting A's in all these classes. And we're excelling, and we have our own mentor who we can talk to when we don't want to talk to the teacher, when we're too shy. And that's just something that helped us through high school, So thank you for investing in us, because if you invest in this program, you're not just investing in the program, you're investing in our lives, you're investing in our futures. And without this program, I wouldn't be a college student like I am right now. So thank you.
I want to make sure to leave some time for questions, because I mean, as you heard, we have amazing stories up here. But one thing that, I think I have this slide because I think this slide is important and doesn't need any explanation. It's just, in everything that we do, and going back to, to Kelly's program, to the Academy for Success, it's really about meeting students where they're at, where they need that support. And it's also about making sure that they know that adults are there for them. I think that's something that we most definitely learned, is that through Peak and through the Academy for Success, there are many adults who are there, available, and invested in the lives of our students. And so, going back to the fact that even our community is invested in our students, that has made such an amazing difference for our students. And so we are very proud of the work that we're doing. We're going to continue to do that. And again, we're going to continue to invest in our graduates as we bring them, back to work with us as tutors and mentors. So at this time, if anyone has any questions, we're happy to answer those.
I'd like to know how many of the mentors are male? How many, we're predominantly women in this room, and I would like to know in your program how the gender breaks out.
So we start out with half of all of our mentors are male. Every class gets a female and a male mentor. Yeah.
I've always been a little confused. If you could just quickly explain the difference between Peak and Avid and how they work together.
Yeah, sure. So PEAK is the Program for Effective Access to College, right? So that is all the supports, right, that happen from the district level to the top. Avid is a class, right? It's one elective offering that it's just offered throughout the day. So through Avid, students are not receiving the additional tutoring services in the evening. There's no parent programming through Avid either, and there isn't mentors through Avid. There's no dedicated academic counselor through Avid, and I could go on and on with the supports. The scheduling supports, that does not happen through Avid. Those are all strategies that were created through the PEAK program, and Avid is simply an elective course offering that is an option for students to take. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I wonder if this program and the other program we talked about too are expanding to other school districts in our state?
Currently, they are not, but I can tell you that there are some of our partner school districts within the county that have reached out to us, wanting to learn more about the model and to perhaps implement that model at their school districts. So currently, there are about 2 school districts that have reached out to us within our county.
So just to add to that, I'm a school board member at a real school board in Oxnard, California, and I know our superintendent has scheduled a visit for a consultation with our superintendent because we're going to try to, follow after the footsteps of the PEAK program initiative. So that's excellent.
Just a question about the economic issues here. When moving from high school to college is economically a big, huge step. And how does that work? And anything you can tell me about that would be helpful.
Well, I mean, a lot of our PEAK senior year focused on financial aid. It helped us on applying for all of that. It introduced us to what applications looked like, not just for admissions, but also how we could make our essay better for when we're applying to scholarships and grants and, of course, loans. But it was just a lot more helpful.
I wanted to ask, is there any overlap between the 2 programs? They both sound wonderful. It sounds as if perhaps the Academy for Success will pick up the children who fell through the cracks in junior high. Is there any rivalry? Is there any collaboration between the 2 programs?
Rivalry, no, that will never exist. We would never let that happen. We have collaborated very recently. We hosted a conference for our girls from Peak and the Academy for Success in the fall at UCSB. We're going to do a follow-up on that, and Kelly and I are actually going to be meeting about just collaborating more, having some of our students mentor the Academy for Success students and just really bringing them together for more activities.
Where your tutors come from? Are they from the high school? Are they from City College or from the community even?
That's a great question. So I will tell you that at least 80% of our tutors are graduates of Santa Barbara Unified. We're very, very proud of that. That, again, it goes back to we're reinvesting in our youth locally. And we recruit our tutors, from the STEM program at City College. Because the greatest need for tutors, again, our students are taking advanced placement classes, and the greatest need for tutoring is in the sciences and math. So that's math, chemistry, physics. And so we have a great relationship, great partnership with City College STEM program. We also recruit from UCSB. And again, our tutoring centers are open from 5 to 7, and so that's a good time for our college students to be able to work with us.
I do have another question because the word financials came up and the funding came up. And of course, these are quite comprehensive programs, wraparound programs. And so I wonder if you might explain the financial support that there is for these programs, what it requires.
Yes. For the first 4 years that we piloted the project at La Cumbre and San Marcos, that was 2011 through 2015, it was 100% funded through private fundings through our partner foundations. The school district invested in 2015 and continues to increase that investment. So currently, the investment as far as our public funds, which is from the school district, is at about 45%, and the other 55% is we rely on private monies from donors, from our local foundations.
Just one more, since we do have a second student here, I wonder if we might have a few words from her about her experiences in the program.
Hi, so I'm Yolanda Boteo. I'm also a graduate from 2015. So my experience from the program, my parents really didn't get an education. So I had to figure everything out by myself and everything. And coming to tutoring, getting mentors, I started getting the confidence that I needed in life. I was a shy little timid girl. I would never speak out, but now I speak out a lot. I talk to the community. Sometimes people just look at me and are like, wow, you talk a lot. And I'm like, oops. I also notice about the community. I try to give back to my community in the way that they helped me. I've also started to tutor all my cousins, some kids in the neighborhood, because I've realized those kids want to have a better future for themselves. They want to learn, they want to succeed in life. And now being part of it and being a mentor also shows me how many kids don't want to be getting into trouble. They want to succeed. They want to get all A's. They've been trying to take advancement places. I met high school students that keep asking me, oh, what class should I take? Oh, what do you want me to do? Or what do you think I should do to get a head start for college? And I always go back to them and I talk to them in one-on-one. So that was my little experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that was terrific. We really appreciate hearing your personal stories as well and your involvements in the programs. Well, we've been talking about programs here that the school district has undertaken and that are run through the school, really with community support as well. But our next program and our last program is one that is really a nonprofit in the community that contracts with the schools to bring in certain activities and functions. I will say that Jared Schwartz, who's the executive director of Just Communities, was not able to be here today. But we're very pleased to have Dr. Ana Becerra, who is the program director for Just Communities here, to tell us about their programs within the school, which are different because their purpose is to change the school climate, is what they are doing. And as I was looking at the website, I noticed that what they have is a quote by W.E. Du Bois. It says, "Of all the civil rights for which the world has struggled and fought for 5,000 years, the right to learn is undoubtedly the most fundamental." And their website goes on to say, and this is in their Equity in Education initiative, which is part of what the school process is, and I will say ahead of time that they have quite a multifaceted program in the schools, so I hope we get our arms around this a little bit as we talk about it. But I did want to just quote this. This is, "Education often predicts our success as individuals. Our performance in school often sets our life path, influencing where we live, where we work, and how we raise our own children. But our society does not always ensure that all children have equal access to quality education. Children of color lag behind white students in their progress through school. Lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender youth walk the hallways in fear. Just Communities works with educators, students, and parents to create schools in which all students enjoy a sense of connectedness, safety, and the highest quality of education." So we're looking forward to learning more about this from Ana Becerra. She's worked with Just Communities since 2011, after enjoying a varied career in education as a teacher, administrator, consultant. She received her doctorate in educational leadership and organization from UCSB. Ana.
Well, thank you very much. And you had to do some quick homework, finding out that I was a replacement somewhat at the last minute. Excellent. Thank you for that introduction. So, and I recognize you've been sitting for a long time, so if you need to stand up, stretch your arms, or whatever you need to do right now. You've been sitting for about an hour. I'm not offended. Use it to just kind of get your blood going a little bit. That's perfectly fine. Let's see. Great. I got my slides up. All right, whoops, start again. I'm really intrigued by this question. Can every child succeed? It's really a yes, no, right? But embedded in there is a deep belief system and also a commitment to how much are we willing to invest in what we believe. So that's some of what we do at Just Communities, is really probe into different issues of equity and ask the questions and really think about what are our biases and beliefs. As was shared already, Just Communities, our vision is an equitable, inclusive coast, a central coast, San Luis Obispo all the way through Ventura County that we serve, where people feel valued and connected and important and respected. All these things that as human beings we thrive with. And we work with different community organizations and schools and districts in order to help them to be places of opportunity and not limitation. So just to give you an overview of some of our goals, and our approach is working, again, with the schools, other nonprofits, service agencies like police, churches, faith organizations, whoever really wants to look at how inclusive are we, and are we really valuing and showing our respect for every person that comes through our doors. So one of the ways that we approach this work is, and I'm going to be focusing more on the work we do with educators, but just so you know, it's really a three-pronged approach of working with educators, working with parents, and working with students. And what we do is build a common language, common focus, common information and background, so when these three groups come together, there's now a discussion where everybody is on the same level. To take it even further, we have a whole language justice initiative, because you can't have these conversations across communities if we don't build those bridges necessary across language differences. The goal being that these conversations can happen as if language were not a barrier. So not only will you come in and get interpretation in your primary language, but you'll be able to express yourself in your primary language, and the message will be carried. When we first started doing some of the work, and this generally comes up, these kinds of remarks, when we talk about subgroups and some of the challenges of some students that just aren't making it through school, there's this blame thing that starts to happen. That's what happens when we're feeling kind of beat up, when we're doing the best we can and we're getting beat up. I've seen it happen with elementary school teachers, just sure it was because the kindergarten teacher didn't do what she was supposed to do. Getting to high school and junior high just didn't do what they were supposed to do. The parents, if you're, to blame, because they don't care. They don't want to come to school. They don't have enough education to support their children. So it goes on and on, so a bit of negativity. But what we find that really comes out of people that are struggling and just feeling oppressed themselves. And teachers very often are in that group. Educators are, where they're expected to reach all students, do wonderful things with them, given limited resources and time to do it in. So that's where you'll get some of these remarks. So we start to surface this and get folks reconnected with that passion that got them into the work. We all carried a little bit of a fire, at least, about the work we're going to do with students and how it's really going to have a great impact. But something happens along the way, and we need that re-energizing. So one response, this quote is really an interesting response to think about to the question of, can every child succeed? And I'll go ahead and read it out loud. I don't know if everybody can see it back there. Oops. Oh, that helps. Thank you. Whew, I feel better already. Okay, how many effective schools would you have to see to be persuaded of the educability of all children? If your answer is more than one, then I submit that you have reasons of your own for preferring to believe that basic pupil performance derives from family background instead of school response to family background. So if we think about this, when we ask this question, can all children succeed, how much proof do we need to really answer that question? Recently, about 3 years ago, we were part of a study to see what kind of impact has Just Communities had on the school district. Working with the district since 2005, has there made a difference? That's always a question. It's very hard to really answer that question because, like all these wonderful programs you're hearing of, there's other efforts going on. How do we know what makes the difference? So it's really a contribution analysis of how do all the contributors really make a difference. And so whenever we looked at the data where we were involved, not trying to take credit for everything because there's a lot of good people doing a lot of good work, we did see a steady pattern of improvement, which was very encouraging in all these different areas of improvement. Another part of the study looked at another district in San Diego where it showed similar results of just steady growth in student success when we looked at the subgroups. And we have found that the narrative, as we do more and more work, seems to be changing. Teachers are feeling more empowered. Educators are more likely to see the possibilities. There's greater trust in parents and what they bring to the table. Greater trust in students being able to articulate what they need. And that comes out in some of the student work that we do. And also, we've had a very wonderful school district to work with that has really been thriving to come up with strategies for being a place of success for all students every day. So again, this quote just comes out of the contribution analysis showing that there was measurable gain through the work done through Just Communities in the school district. It's been a wonderful partnership that the school district has invested funders in the community has invested, and then as a nonprofit, we have invested our resources to come together. And the way we structure our work, there's a flyer also in the back that summarizes some of this, is to really help people to build that sense of urgency, to really realize what some of the issues are. So there's a deep sense of urgency about the achievement gap. We look at the data and we start to think about what is going on and can we really turn our back on this. So Just Communities was the spark that started the fire for all this work and helped us along the way in a way that you would hope any organization would. And it was never about them, and it was always about the kids and the schools. So we take a lot of time to build a community. We have a week-long institute for educators. Our first day is really building community and helping to get back in touch with our passions. This was a quote by Ryan Gleason when he was the assistant principal at Dos Pueblos. He's now at the county, I believe, Ventura County, or the Santa Barbara County. Just to show you some of the early on data that we were finding when we were looking at data. When we would talk about issues around racism and the achievement gap, some of the pushback at times was, is it really about race? Isn't it more about economics? So we started looking at the data that way, disaggregating around economics and race, and this is some of what we were finding. That if we disaggregate, take away not socially or socioeconomically disadvantaged, not English learners, not special ed, and all the parents had college or higher education, these were some of the discrepancies we were seeing at the 3 high schools. This is when we accounted for all those other factors. So you could see the Latino students were succeeding at much lower levels than the white students. Now, if we looked at it for, yes, socially, socioeconomically disadvantaged, but not English learners and not special ed, we were still seeing that pattern. So we were slicing it different ways to see, does it look different? And then this one, where the white students included are socioeconomically disadvantaged, parent ed education is high school or below, and compare them with Latino students who are not socioeconomically disadvantaged and whose parents have college or above, and neither are English learners or special ed, you still see this. So these were some of the data that concerned us. So it wasn't just economics. It wasn't just a matter of students not having the resources, there's something else going on. So we tried to keep peeling back the onion and asking the questions. One of the ways we do this is we have to have a common language for talking about it. If I'm using the word prejudice and somebody else is saying discrimination, and somebody else is calling it oppression, how do we know we're having a conversation about the same thing? So some of our time is taken with developing that common language. We spent some time talking about intentions because, again, we operate on the belief that educators get an education because they care, and care very, very much, and really want to make a difference, and really are trying, our intentions are good. But something's happening when we come to the outcomes. We're not getting the outcomes we're looking for all the time. So something's happening in between. We spend a lot of time looking at the personal and institutional factors and the context that they live in. The other thing we do is take time to look at the dynamics of oppression. How does this all fit together? As I was saying, we have all this terminology. For example, if I'm talking about a stereotype, I'm really talking about something that lives in the individual in their mind, an opinion that they carry. Maybe don't act out on, but carry that opinion. All the way over to when we use the word oppression, we're really talking about something that's much bigger, it's systemic. It's a system in place that holds some people back and gives advantages to others. It's not individuals hurting one another necessarily, it's what's become institutionalized. So we start to tease that apart. The other thing we do is, oh gosh, what happened there? Okay, that's an interesting one. Okay, let's go back to it. Well, I'll interpret this for you. Okay, what we have here is our table of oppression. And just gives us an illustration of how we look at it, that all the oppressions are all the isms, where anybody is being targeted and not given full advantage to live their life fully. Take advantage of the system in the way everybody else can. So if we look at, for example, let's look at ableism, for example. And we can put any ism on this table. We have the privilege group. That upside down word is privilege. Folks in the privilege group are able-bodied, ones that can navigate the streets and the sidewalks and the restrooms and everything with ease. A disadvantaged group would be the targeted group that runs into the obstacles if we don't consider how to adapt. Privileged group collusion means we don't give it a second thought. In fact, we just go along with it, that it's okay. Target group collusion is when the group that's being targeted starts to internalize their own oppression and think it's just the way it is, and this is how the system goes. So that's when we start to internalize it. When we're talking about students, and students start to internalize those messages, it becomes those messages of I'm not a good student, I can't achieve at high levels, I'm not like those other students, and then we even start to act it out on one another. Like, who do you think you are to succeed? Our people don't do well in those courses. So those messages that become internalized, and we really start to look at all those and all the factors that come into play so we can think about what are some strategies for combating that. Introspection is an opportunity that allows educators to analyze and change their attitudes and practices. We have to really build safety, a really safe community to do this in, where we're willing to share our histories or maybe some of the ideas that we carry as we go through a process of change. As we design the work that we do, we spend a lot of time thinking about the head part, the data that we need to look at, the theory, the research. So we go through that, but we also spend time thinking about the heart, because these issues we talk about are very close to our heart. There's a lot of feeling around it. It's emotional, it's connected to personal stories and experiences. So trying to build an environment where we support one another as we work on the heart level. And finally, the hand piece. What are we going to do now that we've learned this, now that we've had this exploration? So we develop action plans. Parents and students develop recommendations to the school. It's important that we have critical mass. We have some examples in this district of critical mass and where it's really made a difference. An example would be Dos Pueblos, that has had all their administrators and probably about a third of their teachers and parents and students involved in doing equity work. And now they have an Allies for Equity committee. They work with the other programs that are giving students support, and it helps to bring all those efforts together. I think that came up earlier, like how do things overlap? How do they fit together? When you have an oversight group, they can have those conversations and see what do we have going on, and it's articulated much, much better. Again, this is an illustration of what that critical mass could look like. Critical mass has a direct impact when you have the principal and about 35% of the staff of the school. District leadership, our district leadership has gone through the program, so they're speaking on that same common language. And core groups of students and parents. And if you'll see, it works outward too. So we might have folks that come to the program, they have an impact talking with their peers and colleagues at schools and students, the overall school population and district population, and then the community at large. And as was mentioned here earlier, there's been a ripple effect with other districts. Santa Maria Joint Union High School District is looking towards Santa Barbara School District to see what's possible, and feeling very hopeful because they have a good example. Let me see what I can, okay, I'm running out of time and I had a few more slides. So it is evidence-based. We bring in case studies, research, and the data. Based a lot on the connectedness research. That's come up a few times today, that it's very important that we feel a sense of belonging, connectedness. We could go into great depth about how important that is when we know we belong to a caring community. Students need that too. And that's what these programs that have been talked about today do bring to the students. When we know what our students can do and we believe in them, then we're able to figure out the rigor and the relevancy of how to bring that rigor to our students. Okay, I think my time's about up. Just real quick, maybe I can end with this chart real fast. Just so you can see there is a strategic approach involved. Again, building the awareness, sense of urgency, taking time to build relationships, especially where relationships haven't naturally occurred across communities or people of different identities. Leadership development, so people can take charge of their own social justice and equity issues in their environment. Plan change, working together to be strategic about the change we want to see, and then being able to mobilize and measure results. So this is all a part of the plan. And these are just some of the different ways that we've gone about it, and I've shared with you already about these different approaches, working with parents, students, and educators. All right, thank you.
Hi, thank you for that interesting talk. And to me, I didn't figure out what it was that you are doing for a long time into your talk. And, you know, meeting with students, meeting with parents, are you, you know, finding communities to talk to, tutoring students? I couldn't get what actually you do in a practical sense. And the other thing is, it seems like what you didn't start out with this, but it seems like you're working on inherent biases of racism and the other isms. But you didn't start out with that, so it took me a long time to get there. Am I right that that's what you're doing?
Yeah, I apologize for that. You had to work so hard to do that. Yes, so we are working on areas of implicit bias. What we're doing is workshops, institutes. It might be, for example, with the educators, we have a week-long residential institute that they can come in teams, and so they have folks to do their planning around the issues that they're talking about and what they're learning, and they educators, that's the week long for the educators. What we have for students is a 2-day talking in class, and I guess I was trying to avoid taking a lot of time talking about each program. And I do have some flyers I'll put back there, but just real quick, the 3-day talking in classes for students that are excused from their classroom at the high schools. We've done it at the junior high level, and we're going to pilot it at 6th grade level, where students come in and they talk about what are the equity issues in their school. They also develop the common language, look at the data. We do spend time looking at the history of education in the U.S., history of public education. With the students also, we have an 8-day residential leadership development institute in the summertime, where they work on issues that also cover many, many other topics that they're dealing with in their school. They go back with action plans. A lot of the safe rooms and different places have developed out of that, especially as they learn which teachers have gone to this program. It helps them to make those connections. Our parents go through a 18 to 20-hour training. It's broken up over 9 weeks where they'll have about 2 hours each time where they also talk about these issues. Their plans could all look different depending on what issues emerge from their school. And then they all practice their leadership skills of presenting their ideas at the end and having some conversation.
I wonder if you could share some outcomes that have happened or specific activities that have been exhibited in the schools. In other words, what kind of direct requests have students made? How have they become directly involved in the school atmosphere, climate, rules?
Yes, well, there's a lot of things that come to my mind. If I'm thinking about students, I'm thinking about San Marcos right now, where they've been very instrumental in starting to identify and work with the educators there on their Allies for Equity. That also exists over at Dos Pueblos, that came out of a result of their work. With the parents at Dos Pueblos, something really interesting happened there. We had, first of all, we wanted community members, monolingual English and Spanish speakers, to come together. We had a really hard time recruiting the monolingual English to come to this, be the group. It's called Parent Involvement Through Dialogue and Action. And, but the person that did come was the president of the PTA. And that turned out to be so instrumental because as part of their action plan, they decided they were working in very opposite or silos, having different conversations. They learned that if they brought in simultaneous interpretation and put in other supports, they could integrate their PTA, and by the next election, they had now some monolingual Spanish-speaking parents in their officer roles, and also they came together and coordinated an orientation that was presented in Spanish at the beginning of school to help parents, because that served as an issue that parents weren't informed or didn't really know, especially if they had never gone to high school, what to expect in high school.
Could you give an example of common language?
Common language would be, well, the example I gave up there also was like, when I use the word, if I use the word implicit bias, is there a group understanding of what we mean? What do we mean by that? What are some examples? If I use the word sexist, is that going to trigger in everybody's mind the same understanding and meaning, or do we have a conversation about what that terminology means, where it links? If I look, is this a personal thing? Is this systemic? A very common one is, can anybody be racist? And to have a conversation, so what do we mean by that word? How does that fit when we think about systems of oppression? Because then we can have a conversation using the same terminology.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
We do have just a few moments. I want to make sure that we have answered any of the questions that you might have. Are there any more questions that you'd like to ask at this time? Okay. I do want to note that all of our speakers have brought handouts that are on the back table. And I know that these are really intense programs, and I hope that you will take that literature to look at that as well. We are going to dismiss a few minutes early, and I hope that you will take advantage to come and talk to our speakers and our students that are here as well, and let them share a little bit more of their feelings with you. We are so very grateful to have all of our speakers here today, to take the time to share with us all of this wonderful work that's going on in the schools. I think we can call this all good news time, and we hope that all of you that are here today will go ahead and spread the word about some of these things that are taking place in the schools as well. Again, I thank you to all of our speakers for being here today and sharing with us. Thank you. And we are dismissed.